Hey, good morning, Drive Time. Welcome back. As always, I'm your host, David Drum. And with me today is Alan Bautch. Alan is we'll call him a ministry leader in a sense, as he is helping to launch a new ministry in Wisconsin that is going to be available through an organization that you guys may remember from seeing previous videos, the No Regrets program and ministry. So Alan, welcome to Drive Time.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So now you have what sounds like a really specific ministry that you guys are creating and rolling out. But what I want to challenge our guys with at first is to not listen to the age of what you're about to say. Because as you and I talked about it when we first met a couple months ago, the impact of what you guys are doing is for every age. You just kind of have a target market, really is what it comes down to. So, if you would, what I want to tell you is there is a moment that begins this story, but it certainly doesn't end the story. So, Alan, if you would paint that picture for me, tell me about this moment where you knew God was changing the direction of your life.
So, about 4 years ago, I was working for a high-tech company, working about 50, 60 hours a week with a fair amount of travel. Found myself once again in an airport midweek and just for some reason decided to look around and kind of really observe what was going on. And one of the things that I noticed was there really were only two groups of people that were in the airport. There were business people like me who were either, returning emails or trying to find a quiet corner to do a conference call in. Or there were people that were just too old to travel. And they were being, carted around the airport or hauled down the tarmac on wheelchairs. And it really kind of sparked a question that I asked myself is, am I wasting my time chasing money? And that was the beginning of the pursuit of really changing kind of the direction that my life was going.
So in that moment, you didn't have this epiphany that like, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. You just started to feel that movement of God opening your eyes and saying, hey, maybe this season's coming to an end. Not that there was anything wrong with the season you had been in and the things you had been doing, but just that he was going to lead you out of that and into something new.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I was working at a job that I hated. I liked my job. Mm-hmm. I was starting to believe that it took up too much of my time. And this was kind of the revelation, I think, of God telling me, I think it is taking up too much of your time. I want you to do something else. And then there was just a series of people that were put in my path that kind of continued to solidify where I was going and then lead to the 50 plus What Now ministry.
So now it's interesting. Guys who have been watching this for a while and guys who are part of our Thursday night ministry at church, we talk about community a lot and being conscious of the community you surround yourself with, the guys that are able to speak into your life. And you just mentioned that the guys were put in your path. So I think that's a testament to, the fact that you're surrounding yourself with the right voices through this, that God was able to, speak through them to give you the affirmation that, hey, this is where I'm leading you. So now how does that transition happen? So you're working in the business world, you're traveling, you're doing the 9 to 5, and God's starting to say, all right, we're done with this. I have something new. And you just mentioned the name, the over 50, what now? And again, it's, the concepts that you and I talked about previously. I laughed. I'm like, that's not for 50-year-olds. That's for everybody.
No. In fact, I think the reason why it has the name is really because of the kind of the genesis of where this came from. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, let's let the viewers and the listeners in on it a little bit. Give us a quick overview. What is the point of the ministry?
So the point of the ministry is for anyone who takes it to determine what they want their vision for their life to be. And it's really not to determine what it is, but it's really to kind of uncover it. You work with God to kind of uncover what your vision would be. And then we provide the tools to help you then put a plan together to chase it. So one of the things that I found was, hey, I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. And if I'm going to reduce that, how am I not going to waste those extra hours that I have available? And in my case, I use it towards supporting the 50 plus ministry. But it was perfect timing, because as I'm working on this ministry, I'm changing my life. So it's to put a plan together, which includes looking at your time, how you're spending your 168 hours every week, determine how you're doing it now, and then how do you want to do it given your vision? And then what are your spiritual gifts? We give you the tools to figure that out. And then you may determine how you want to start, because one of the things that really fulfills people in their life is to help other people or volunteer in something. So you decided we kind of point people towards what are your gifts, and then how do you use those gifts to pursue what your vision is.
So unlike a lot of other ministries, this isn't you guys saying, here's what you should do, X, Y, and Z, this is where you should end up. It's, hey, you've got the same block of time as everybody else. You have this 168 hours a week. And what are you doing with it? So you're not even necessarily saying you have to change your 168 hours a week. You want to start with the evaluation of what are you doing with it? And if you're not happy with the blocks that take up your 168 hours, how to go about adjusting it and starting with, okay, what are my strengths and what do I want to do with my strengths? How do I want to serve others, serve God, and step into the next phase of my life?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I'll tell you that the biggest value that comes out of this class is not the brilliant teaching that Warren and I and Mary have in the class. It's the conversations that you have as you go through the class, because you're doing it with people who are going through some of the same struggles. That's why they're interested in taking it. So I'm not happy with the direction that my life is going, or my spouse thinks I should change the direction, because a lot of times if a couple comes in here, one spouse is dragging the other one in. But it's that conversation of people who are either been down the path ahead of you, are behind you, or at the same place. And you have that discussion, and that's when stuff starts to be uncovered.
Well, and it's interesting. I'm just curious, how many of the people who have been through it have expressed that they wish they knew this when they were younger?
Lots of them. In fact, virtually everyone who takes the class and does the homework and pays attention. They say, gee, I wish I would have gone through this, because I would have not wasted a lot of my time.
Well, and that's why I kind of made that comment at the beginning about this. It doesn't matter what the age is. Yeah, your target market is that, pre-retirement to just retirement age. But if you're 20 and you can start to evaluate your life of, I've got 168 hours available to me, what am I going to do with it? I can't imagine how much different my life would look, how much it would have changed if 20 years ago I was sitting here going, what do I want to do with my 24 hours tomorrow? What do I want to do with my 168 hours next week? And to be intentional about it and not just, come what may, moving through a couple decades of life.
Right. Well, in fact, that's one of the things that we address when we go through this is largely there are so many things in your life that are just handed to you. You know, when you're in your teens, it's, you know, I want to graduate from high school. When you graduate from high school, then it's, I want to go to college or get an occupation. And then from there, maybe get married and have kids. And then those things just kind of drag your life through. And then your life just happens and you're just trying to manage around those core things that happen, but not with a plan. And that's why, the only reason why this is where it is at our church, at Elmbrook Church, when Steve Sonderman from No Regrets was also a pastor there, he could see this problem with this group over 50. But we are seeing people under 50 have taken it. And you know, it's, you can be virtually any place in your occupational lifespan and use this, because there isn't anything that is age specific.
Well, now I want to shift gears a little bit and kind of ask you about, because here's the thing. I think there's plenty of us that look out at the potential landscape of what's in front of us, what we could do with our remaining years, and think, well, I could do this, but I have to imagine there was a moment of, I don't know if you want to call it fear, concern, hesitation about that transition of, hey, I've been working 60 hours a week for like forever. What would it look like to not? So was there a moment of pucker factor for you? Okay, so how did you deal with that?
So, and this is where, you know, God knew the anxiety that was coming into my life from this, and he placed different people and resources through it. So the change that I eventually ended up making was I moved from that high-tech job to working 30 hours a week at a hardware store. And so that was the occupational piece of what I had. And spending a lifetime of putting money into my retirement plan, taking money out caused all kinds of anxiety, because it was just a major shift. I knew the math would work, but it still was a lifestyle change that, you know, I always kept thinking in the back of my head, there's some left field factor that's going to hit me, and I didn't plan for it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, just so you know, the unknown anxiety, what you're talking about. Would you say that's where the component of just trusting God comes in?
It is, because I literally laid out a spreadsheet, went through my checkbook for a year and put everything that I spent money on over the course of a year, just to make sure that, you know, my financial plan was going to hit it. And I'm telling you, and living it, God has provided, you know, everything that I was anxious about really went out the window. And also put people in the path that were either just before me or just after me in that kind of change lineage, and just having those conversations.
Well, now that's interesting, because you didn't just haphazardly go, okay, I trust you, God, and jump out the plane. You started with taking part of that 168 hours a week and going, because, you know, you mentioned you created a spreadsheet with a year's worth of finances plugged into it. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's not a 2-hour process. That I have to imagine took several days of intentional time.
Yeah. I mean, it took time and in effect is probably unnecessary detail, but it was knowing myself that I needed to address that, to eliminate what I thought was kind of hanging out there in the field.
Okay. But you started with an intentional process.
Yes.
To help you plan for the changes that were coming. And I get it, different personalities, different traits. Some people might be able to move past that, but I imagine that those people have their own sticking points that maybe you move through without much thought or concern or anxiety about it. So, well, then let's kind of head into the question of, all right, we're hearing this story, and I love the story. I loved hearing it the first time. I'm enjoying the dialogue about it, but really, what do we do with it from here, in the sense of the guys who are listening, regardless of age? While it's awesome that you were able to make this change, man, I'm just not able to change careers right now. I've got a young family. I've got, babies at home. I've got a new marriage, whatever that season of life is. How can, what can we glean from you in the sense of your willingness and faithfulness to what God's calling you to, but then also even what you guys have developed, the intentionality behind it and casting vision. How do we take that into a ageless component?
So the thing, I always, when I have these conversations, the first thing that I think you've got to get over is whatever path you're on right now is not a sentence. It's not something that, is thrust upon you and that you have to run its course. So you need to kind of look at what you're doing, where you're going. If you have a family to support, so downsizing your job might not be in your plan. Might not make sense for you. But I think you still need to look at how you're spending your time, what your occupation may be doing to your family time, what it may be doing, and just really look at it critically. And, we live in a country that allows us to make changes and make mistakes and then recover again and go do things and realize that you can do that. And, none of these things are terminal if you decide to do something, to make a change in your life. But don't just haphazardly do it. The vision thing I think is the important, is try to set a vision. Where do you want your life to go? And then guide the activities that support that vision. And your occupation should be part of that vision. It should at least mesh with that. And then if it's there, and then you determine which activities are you doing that don't support that vision. And then maybe those are the ones that you get rid of.
That's an interesting point right there, is just evaluating what is not, because you may have a vision and you may be fairly intentional about executing that over the future. But if you don't evaluate the things that are actually in opposition to that vision, you can end up spinning your wheels needlessly in some areas. That's really interesting.
Yeah, one of the tools we use to help you decide which activities are included or not is the Eisenhower decision matrix. Important and urgent versus unimportant and not urgent. And you kind of plug in the activities that fill up those 168 hours in a week, and you go, all right, which of these are important, which of these are urgent, which of these are neither, and eliminate the neither, and then just kind of figure out what things are. And then you start to winnow your way down to a schedule that makes sense and is moving towards where you want your life to be, as opposed to all these activities moving you in a direction. Right. This way you can guide it. And then clearly you need to pray about this. You need to be listening. Yeah, I think it's difficult to come up with a vision. Most people that take the class take at least three of the 5 weeks to uncover that from within. So it is something that you need to it's not something that, if right now you're thinking, oh, I have no idea what my vision is. Well, you're not the Lone Ranger. I mean, everybody kind of is at that stage when they start thinking about this.
All right. So, like we talked about, given that this is drive time, and you laid out a lot in the last just 2 minutes. If you could challenge us with one thing this week that you really think would help us turn the tables on this mindset shift, kind of the beginning that you had at the airport. what would that challenge be for us this week?
I would think of my story when I was at the airport. I think it's what might God be tapping you on the shoulder either to do or not to do, and how might that fit into a larger plan or a larger, we're calling it vision, but a larger life direction, and then start to uncover that, and then, like I said, then you've got to unravel the onion and start to figure out what are the things in your life that maybe don't support where that's going.
That's good. That's good.
The other thing is be careful of not chasing money, because chasing money can get you to do a lot of things that you don't like for a really long time.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I feel like we could probably go another 15 or 20 minutes really just on that topic alone.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, gentlemen, so if this whole conversation is making you think and you're like, man, I'd really like to know more about that ministry and because it's a small group curriculum, correct?
Yes.
So if you're interested in looking into that, Alan's contact information, which is what you would need to start with in order to be a part of this and to get that information, contact him directly, and he can follow up with you. He will get you headed in the right direction with the right resources and help you develop a plan for your 168 hours a week. So, Alan, thank you so much for spending some time with us and really giving us something to think about for this coming week. Thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next week right here on Drivetime.